Give us an insight into this business. How fast is it growing, and what are the problems with fraud, or at least allegations of fraud?
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for having me. The e-commerce business is growing at a rapid clip in the U.S. and around the world. Increasingly, we have growth across all channels of business, both in the physical world and in the digital world. And what we're doing at MasterCard is helping to secure all those channels across any device a consumer wants to use to conduct their business. And what we've done is we've been on a journey, David, for the past several years. We've started in the physical world. And several years ago, 3 years ago actually, as of October, we implemented a chip liability shift. And this is something that took place with merchants and with issuing banks, where, as you may have seen on your card, this chip was put on most cards across the U.S. You insert it instead of sliding it.
We're behind Europe in that, right?
We are. So other markets were more advanced in developing that chip technology, and the U.S. went last, mostly because of infrastructure reasons. So it took a while for the merchant community to really replace their point of sale terminals and to get them into a place where they could accept these cards. And then, of course, you have on the issuing side needed time to actually issue these products as well. So now we are at an inflection point where most transactions are being conducted using this chip technology in the physical world. Over 60% of transactions actually in the U.S. are chip enabled.
So, Jenny, walk us through the broader lens here, because obviously that brings up security issues I think about every time that I use my chip. How much money do companies have to spend on security to keep things safe?
It's a huge expense. I think, if you listen to any of the earnings calls this quarter, you hear over and over again from both banks, payment networks like MasterCard and their competitor Visa, that cybersecurity is one of the top expense lines, and then also just the moves that the industry is trying to make in terms of securing that system even more. So it's definitely top of mind for management teams and everyone involved in terms of trying to keep the system as safe and secure as possible.
So what do you guys do at MasterCard for that?
Yeah, we take a multi-layered approach to ensuring cybersecurity readiness within our ecosystem. We make sure that we're protecting the system first and foremost in the physical world, as I mentioned, with the chip. In the digital world, increasingly we're implementing new solutions and products like tokenization. So tokenization is when you take the 16-digit number on the card and you convert that into a dynamic token. So it really renders that card
a physical
useless.
Object.
Correct. So it takes the number that you would insert on a website and it turns it into a dynamic token. So every time that card is used, it will change the number and it will render it useless to a fraudster who takes that card and attempts to use it in another digital capacity. So that's the way we're securing the digital world, to make it as secure and as safe as the physical environment.
So it used to be we thought signatures helped us with that. You signed the thing and people could compare it with what's on the back of the card. Right. I see it increasingly now when I go in, they don't ask for a signature, at least if it's below a certain level.
Right.
Is that less secure because we don't have those signatures?
Not at all. So the signature in and of itself is not an effective means of preventing fraud and stopping fraudsters. That's why we now have the chip technology. So we've actually retired the use of signature, and more you'll start to see merchants tell you that you don't need to sign either the back of the card or your receipt at the point of sale. And again, this is an effort that we've undertaken to streamline that point of sale experience and make it as friction-free as possible.
Signing, so 80s.
We won't talk about how old we were respectively in the 80s. Yeah, those are some of our good years.
You were, when Linda was talking about sort of the steps in the digital world for security, you were nodding. What do you see?
Yeah, well, I think to Linda's point with chip cards, 3 years ago, we saw a lot of the fraud in store get resolved and addressed. But I think when we've talked about it in the past, we've talked about it like whack-a-mole. Like when you whack one fraudster down, he just pops up somewhere else. And so we've seen a lot of that fraud shift online. And so it's very interesting to see now how the networks and the banks and merchants are all having to work together again and come up with a new solution for that online world.